No, I've got my green tank. No, I'll go get more if I have to. That's right. I'll go approve that one green.
Makes no difference to me.
Here comes Tim. Oh, Tim.
Hey, hey. Nice to see you.
Here comes Beth. We'll wait for her to get here. Diane, so if there was any public comments, will the planning people, staff have those to read? Okay.
The one I know of, Lauren has one, and she will, you don't need to do anything, she'll read it.
Okay. And then I have the one that you gave us. There was an email from somebody about the James Street. Okay, then she's just going to read that. Okay. 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 We waited for you.
Oh, thank you.
How you doing?
I'll let you get settled in. Come running.
Yes, I had this. Well, I'm sorry.
Okay.
My glasses so I can see.
Do you want to do the invocation or not? If you got it, okay, I've got a backup, but if you got it, then I'll let you go ahead. Okay. You ready? Okay. I'd like to call to order the June 8th, 2020 Apex Planning Board meeting. I'd like to ask Beth Godfrey to offer the invocation, please.
If you all would bow your heads, please. On behalf of the community of Apex, we praise you for this monthly meeting, Lord, and your purpose for it. We thank you for your eternal assurance that where two or more people gather together in your name, you are present. As the items of our agenda unfold, we humbly seek your clarity, wisdom, and guidance. Bless this meeting today and all who are present. In the sweet name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Diane, do we have any items of information?
Just a couple
couple items. One item that everyone needs to be aware of, in between every speaker, if you touch anything up here, you have to spray it down and wipe it before the next person comes up. And then just in terms of long-range planning, we have kicked off our affordable housing plan. We've had one steering committee meeting. It was done electronically on Teams. It went very well. And so we look forward to moving forward with that project. And then we also have kicked off our wayfinding plan for signage all around town. And we currently have 2 staff members that have been going out and documenting every single sign in Apex, location, size, height, all of that. And it's taking a long, long time, but that's what they're working on. So just wanted to let you know that both of those projects are moving forward.
How's the census? Any feedback?
So census, we are over 70% response rate. Our goal is about 84%, so we still have a ways to go. Our lowest response rate census tract is essentially everything south of 64, west of Kelly, north of Olive Chapel, and east of New Hill, Olive Chapel Road. So that area we don't have as good response as we would like. But other than that, most tracts are up around the 70%. We have a few that are in the high 80%, so that's good news.
Thank you. At this time, we will have the public comment. This is for anybody from the public to speak on items that do not appear in this agenda under public hearings. So any of the public wishing to comment on public hearing items will be called at the appropriate time. So the public comment period is the opportunity for public to express concerns or opinions, but is not intended to be a question and answer session. During public comment, the public may comment on any non-public hearing items, including new business items that appear in this agenda. Comments from the public on new business will not be taken later in the agenda, so if you wish to speak on a new business item, public comment is the time to do this. All comments must be limited to 3 minutes. When your 3 minutes are up, the speaker will be asked by the chair to wrap up their comments. At this time, do we have anybody for public comment on any non-public agenda items? Seeing none, we will move to the first consent item number 1, and that is the meetings from the May 11th virtual team meeting that we had. Any comments, changes that need to be made, or motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes from May 11th, 2020. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now we enter the public hearing session. Similar, all public comments, when appropriate, we will be called. All comments must be limited to 3 minutes. When your 3 minutes are up, I will ask that you wrap up your comments. If there are a large number of speakers for one particular item, it would be helpful if a representative could be selected to speak for the entire group. If not, comments on a single public hearing should not be repetitive in nature. If comments were already made by another speaker, just please state agreement with the previous speaker and do not repeat what already been stated. So that leads us to public hearing item number 1 that Sarah will present regarding rezoning case 19 CZ22, the Wolf Property PUD.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members. I'll be presenting rezoning case 19 CZ22, Wolf Properties PUD. The subject properties are located in this general vicinity here, north of 64, just on the east side of Wimberley Road. And bringing a little bit closer, these are the subject properties that we will be discussing in the rezoning petition. This project is brought to you by Josh Swindell of Envision Homes, and as well as several property owners listed on your staff report. The overall project is just over 43.5 acres. The subject properties are located here on the northeast side of Wimberley Road. Several of the properties contain residential structures but are otherwise wooded. Hickory Hill Lane and Hickory Hill Lane here, Double Helix Lane here, are both private drives and transverse the site down to Wimberley Road. We'll discuss a little bit further, but you also see that what you see here is a Colonial Pipeline gas easement bisecting the property. The subject properties are almost all currently zoned. Wake County, ADWR, a little sliver here of this property is rural residential. Existing zoning around the subject properties is also mostly Wake County, ADRW, and we have PUD conditional zoning over here to the east and rural residential down here to the south. The proposed zoning district is planned unit development conditional zoning. Oops. The 2045 land use map recommends low density residential in this area. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting on October 1st, 2019. That neighborhood meeting report is included in your packet. The 2045 land use map identifies the properties subject to this rezoning as low-density residential. The proposed rezoning to planned unit conditional zoning is consistent with that recommendation. Here to the existing site. There are several proposed zoning conditions. Again, this is a PUD, so I'll go over some of the highlights. You do have a full PUD text document in your report as well. Permitted uses are 4 general categories: residential, including single-family, townhouse, and accessory apartment; utilities minor; recreational uses, greenway, parks, active and passive; recreational facility private; and also government services. And let me point out on the overall PUD plan here that because in the general area up in here, the town has public safety station number 6 planned in this general area. Therefore, if necessary, a portion of this site could be used, particularly this parcel 1 here, could be used for public safety station 6. Therefore, your permitted uses number 4, government services, is limited just here to this parcel as shown on the PUD. Maximum density for the project is 3 units per gross acre with a max number of 130 units. All of the dimensional standards are consistent with the proposed uses for single-family, townhouse, and non-residential uses. Overall for the project, it has proposed a 20-foot perimeter buffer. We have either a 30-foot undisturbed or 50-foot undisturbed thoroughfare buffer along applicable portions of Wimberley Road. Along the eastern property boundary, what normally would be required is a 10-foot type B. Again, overall is a 20-foot type B for the project. And then, and that's what you see here sort of in this teal green or dark green. Not sure how it quite transferred on y'all's. And then up here, also in that dark green, we have a 100-foot no clear-cut buffer, and this is via a deed restriction. So that is what is in that area. And so again, while we have this one up here, I'll just point out a few things. So again, that's a 100-foot no clear-cut buffer. You have your perimeter buffer shown here around the edges. There's an access easement shown here in orange. This is the Colonial Pipeline gas easement that I referenced earlier. And then you also have utility easements running here along Double Helix and here. The PUD is providing at least 25% of the total area for RCA and landscape buffers. That equates to 10.88 acres, and the Wolf Properties PUD has committed to 10.9 acres. At a minimum, if the single-family lots are mass graded, then they will dedicate an additional 5% RCA. And an additional zoning condition regarding to RCA that we don't always see is that existing deciduous trees greater than 18 inches in diameter that are removed by site development shall be replaced by planting a 1.5-inch caliper native tree from the Town of Apex Design and Development Manual, either on-site or at an alternative site location approved by town planning staff above and beyond standard UDO requirements. Wolf Properties PUD will meet all stormwater requirements laid out in UDO Section 6.1. The project will also commit to providing attenuation for the 2-year and 25-year storms as well. Here is the phasing plan for the project. We have Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. Turn here to the south. There are several architectural standards laid out in your staff report. They are all standard of what we typically see and are laid out for single-family, townhome, and non-residential uses separately. As shown here in the utility plan that was provided, this project will extend services. As I mentioned, the architectural standards, you can see here are our single-family home elevations, typical elevations. And then these are for the townhome. And if you want me to go back to okay. Another additional zoning condition that is included, where economy housing is housing that can be purchased by a household that earns approximately the median household income for Apex, Wolf Properties PUD will address economy housing by providing a minimum of 10% of the total number of units of the development as determined at master subdivision phase. The townhouse units shall have a minimum width of 18 feet and maximum width of 20 feet with no garages and allowable parking in compliance with section 8.3. However, they shall adhere to all other setback and architectural conditions set forth in the PUD plan. Pedestrian connectivity, all internal public streets will have sidewalks on both sides. Bicycle and pedestrian improvements associated with subdivision plans for any development made pursuant to this plan shall comply with the comprehensive transportation plan. And just so you know that Wimberley Road here calls for a 10-foot side path along here. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Advisory Commission heard this item at their February 26, 2020 meeting and unanimously recommended a land dedication in the location provided in the PUD plan located contiguous to the southern boundary of the future park property along the frontage of Wimberley Road to comply with section 14.1.3 standards of dedication. The total acreage to be dedicated will be determined by the total unit count at the time of master subdivision plan approval. They also recommended the reservation of a public greenway easement along one of the utility easement corridors to provide access to the park for the Wolf Properties PUD, as well as the preserve at White Oak Creek, with the location being determined at the time with master subdivision plan approval. The proposed PUD is consistent with the Apex Transportation Plan. The proposed PUD provides a minor collector street through the site, and that would be based on this access point here, through the site up here to this proposed access point to the north for future extension, and this is consistent with the thoroughfare and collector street plan. Further, in compliance with the Town of Apex UDO section 13.19.4, the project offers, subject to DOT review and approval, the following off-site roadway improvements. Green Level West and Wimberley Road intersection, the developer shall construct a northbound taper right turn lane on Wimberley Road with 50 foot of full width deceleration and 100-foot taper prior to the first plat. Construction of curb and gutter will be limited to only along the 50-foot deceleration. Along the sidewalk and storm drainage structures will only be placed in areas as necessary to continue existing drainage patterns and not restrict existing structures. 2, Wimberley Road and Jenks Road intersection. The developer shall construct a southbound taper right turn lane on Wimberley Road with 50 foot of full width deceleration and 100-foot taper prior to the first plat. No curb and gutter will be installed. Vegetated conveyances will be utilized to stay consistent with current conditions, and no upgrades to existing storm drainage infrastructure. Planning staff recommends approval of 19 CZ 22 Wolf Properties PUD with the conditions as offered by the applicant. And before I forget, we have 4 new zoning conditions. These are what I put up here moments before the meeting started. Keith got me putting them up here, so I will read those out. Those again are in print for you. The 4 additional zoning conditions read: 1, Zoning condition for environmental assessment. A Phase 1 environmental assessment will be completed on the property to be dedicated to the town and provided to the town prior to construction plan approval. 2, zoning condition for land dedication. If the town of Apex determines that it wants the land dedication for the purposes of a public safety station versus parkland, the land dedication will occur by January 31st, 2021. My apologies. Or prior to construction plan approval of public safety station number 6, whichever comes later. If the land will be used for park purposes, the timing specified in the UDO will be followed. Zoning condition for road improvements. If the town of Apex determines that it wants the land dedication for the purposes of a public safety station versus parkland, road improvements for Collector Street will be completed from Wimberley Road to just past the planned public safety station, where station driveway no later than February 28th, 2022, or prior to the certificate of occupancy, whichever comes later. If the land will be used for park purposes, the timing specified in the UDO will be followed. Zoning condition for timing of CD approval. If the town of Apex determines that it wants the land dedication for the purposes of a public safety station versus parkland, a temporary driveway permit signed by NCDOT will suffice for construction drawing execution and issuance of grading permit. Any changes from temporary driveway permit to the final driveway permit will be the responsibility of the developer. Approval of this rezoning is reasonable because the proposed planned unit development conditional zoning district is consistent with the low-density residential land use classification on the 2045 land use map. The proposed rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest because it will allow for additional land for a future public park or public safety station and development of single-family residential uses that will be compatible with the single-family uses to the north, south, and east. The proposed rezoning will also maintain the character and appearance of the area. And I will be happy to field any staff questions before turning the floor over should you have any questions for the applicant.
The connection to the double,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So Sarah, I got two questions. The first one is in point 2, you're stating it's January 31st, 2021, not
Correct.
2020.
Yes, I apologize.
Okay, that's the first question. Second question is, this parcel is roughly, what, 100 yards from the Wembley entrance to the tobacco trail? A little more than that?
Maybe a little more than that.
A little, yeah, it would be at the bottom of the hill.
Okay.
It's probably a half mile maybe, or between quarters. Yeah. I go out there every weekend, so.
Thank you.
The double helix, I think at the neighborhood meeting, they were, I'm not sure if there's homes on the end of that, but how is the access going to be handled to double helix?
I know that the applicant has had discussions with Zonda. Would that be something that y'all would want to address? I think that he might be able to speak a little bit better.
Okay,
to that.
thank you. Any other questions for Sarah at this time?
The economy housing that's a part of this application, was that something that the developer proposed to do?
The applicant like to make a statement? After the cleaning.
Downside of
My name is Josh Swindell with Envision Homes. I'll address the question about the access easement for the end of Double Helix. Currently, there exists one from Wimberley all the way up Double Helix. Jeff and Lisa Ross live on the property just to the east of this property where Double Helix ends. I have met with the Rosses on numerous occasions on their property. We have drafted 2 agreements that address their concerns, the obvious one being their future access easement. The proposal is that the existing easement would remain in place during construction. We would provide them egress to their property during construction at all times. Once we have recorded the plat for the final phase, then that easement will be extinguished and a new easement will be effective and recorded to go on in perpetuity that will give them access from the new collector road we'll be installing to their property through our property, or the HOA property it will become. And then the other agreement addresses some concerns they had about some fencing we've offered to provide for them and some temporary power source should they lose power during the time of construction.
Thank you.
I didn't put anything.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
The affordable housing, will that look any different from the exterior to the rest of the neighborhood?
So it's not actually affordable housing, it's economy housing. And the way that we have done this in previous cases here in Apex is that we like to restrict the width of the lot, and that's why we proposed the lot widths that we have. That way it restricts the building envelope, which restricts the house size, which restricts the price point.
But the exterior would look just like all the other units?
Same commitments to product and materials, yes.
Thanks, Josh. At this time, we'll open it up for public comment. Anybody wishing to speak on this issue, please make sure you sign in at the by the ramp over there.
Do I need to wipe it down again, please?
No.
Okay.
Trying to do everything right. So my name is Amanda Bambrick. I'm actually an attorney here on behalf of Envision. I'm out of Morningstar, based out of Raleigh, but I moved about a year ago back to Apex, and so my commute here tonight was about 3 minutes, so that was great. I just want to touch on process just a little bit because I do think Josh has done a pretty good job, over the course of this process, talking with the town. I know they've been working on this since, I guess, June of 2019. We've been working with the parks team to try to figure out what that's going to be, and I know the conversation regarding the fire station has only been, I believe, in the past few days. So I think we've been trying to work hard to work with the town to really kind of facilitate something that the town needs. With the different conditions, they've been talking, we've had multiple meetings. I think we'll end up with 6 revisions to the plan. I think we're giving you some innovative conditions. Hopefully we can help set some precedent for other developers in this area with respect to the economy housing and the tree save. So we feel like it's consistent. We feel like it's a good project, and I felt really good working with this team. So we hope you can approve it tonight.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Any other public comments on this rezoning? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment section and bring it back to the board for comments and possible motion.
I just had a question. I noticed that there was a walkway constructed on the Continental Pipeline there, and I know we had some concerns with that, with the property on the corner of Jinx and Wimberley a couple months ago. I guess it's okay. Is it okay to build that there? Is that? I know we couldn't drive over it before, or pavement over it as a parking lot, but it's just a path here, so I guess that would be okay. As far as the Continental Pipeline is concerned.
Yeah.
I'll let you take it.
I'm not going to touch anything.
Okay.
Andy Petty with Curry Engineering. We're at 205 South Fuquay Avenue in Fuquay. We have talked to the gas company, so we'll start working with them. We've actually gotten permission to go out there and pothole and do some other things. Typically, they've been okay with us paving just in various areas, so that's going to kind of get itself worked out during the master subdivision. Okay. Once we get past this phase, schematically right now, that's kind of where we showed it just because it seemed to make the most sense. You already have an easement overlapping there. It's in an open area. But if they say no, then we're going to have to be bound by the requirement of the Parks and Rec Board to put it somewhere. We just felt like we could do some meandering and do it a little, kind of something unique. But we will have to go through the gas company, get them to give us approval for it. Okay. But they've been pretty good so far to work with. Like, so we've gone out there and punched some holes in their easement to find their gas lines to make sure we could sewer everything, and they were really good.
Okay.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? If
Do we have any input from the town as far as for public safety if we are interested in this property at this point?
I've been working with town assistant manager. I've been working with the fire chief, police chief, transportation, Parks and Rec. Basically, there's opportunity potentially to use the land that they're dedicating in a way that would benefit the town in order to potentially site the public safety station in an alternate location than what was originally planned. It's right in the same vicinity, and so we just wanted to keep all our options open. We did just come to the developer late last week after talking internally since about last Friday about opportunities in this vicinity. So we just want to make sure that the zoning conditions were set up that if it turns out that the town, which would be a town council decision, wanted to utilize this land for a public safety station versus a park, the UDO does allow that in Article 14. So we just want to make sure that everything was set up that way. If the town decides they don't want to use it and the subdivision's approved, that land would end up being parkland, and it is adjacent to other parkland.
So for people who may purchase in this neighborhood, they're going to be fully aware that there may be a public service station at that location,
Yes.
potentially.
Yes, the goal is that public safety station construction will start in February of 2021, and that was my mistake. I actually had corrected it in one version, and then it didn't make it over there, so, but yes.
Okay.
We'll know well before this subdivision is built that there will be either a public safety station or whether it'll be parkland.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
One more question, just out of curiosity. Who counts the trees? Who's responsible for counting?
I saw them.
I'm just kind of wondering.
Impressive, I thought.
Just
Must be Andy that has to count the trees.
He's coming.
Luckily, it was not me, but it was our surveyor. They went out there and flagged them all and counted all of them. So
good.
They were very happy with it.
Okay.
They love doing that. Not really, but.
Do you plan to clear cut, or you don't know at this stage yet?
I don't, I mean, the townhomes will probably be, mass graded, because obviously that's how that works with a single family. I think it will depend on who we build and who builds it and what kind of criteria they have. So I don't think it's been determined yet, which is why we didn't throw that in there for the RCA, but we know that if we do, we'll have to put it in there. So we've got area reserved for it, kind of in our back pocket, so that if it does happen, we'll have plenty of RCA to cover it.
Okay. Thank you, Andy.
Sure.
Just curious, does anyone know what the medium household income for Apex is at the time? Or roughly?
We just had this report.
It was like 83,000 the last time I saw it, but it's probably higher now.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of this application with the conditions as offered by the applicant.
I'll second.
Motion, and a second by Keith. I think that, the developer and the applicant are working closely with the town. I like what they're doing. I think they're, where the town has needs, they're accommodating them, so I like the project, so.
I agree.
Any other comments? If not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Rezoning?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Hey, Mike, my laptop went to sleep.
Password. All right, so that's the first one. The second one.
That 2 hours was quick. While he's working on that, we will go to item number 2. Thank you. Sarah will also be presenting this is rezoning case number 19 CZ 23, 2524, and 2604 Kelly Road.
Me again. All right, rezoning case 19 CZ 23, 2524, and 2604 Kelly Road. We are talking talking about two properties located in this general vicinity here, north of Old US 1 and just west of 540. So you'll see here, these are the two parcels that we're speaking of. The total acreage is 2.1 acres. And you'll see that we have two existing structures, one on each parcel here. Each contains a single-family dwelling and accessory building. Oh, this will be really helpful. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on October 28th, 2019. That meeting report is in your staff report. The current zoning for these properties is rural residential. Neighboring zoning, we have West Village over here. That is the PUD CZ that you see here in pink. We also have rural agricultural over, well, it's the zoning, underlining zoning over 540, which is here. And we have more large lot single family rural residential over here to the west. The proposed zoning for the project is mixed office residential retail conditional zoning, MORR CZ. The 2045 land use map recommends mixed use high density residential office employment commercial services. The proposed rezoning to mixed office residential retail conditional zoning, MORR CZ, is generally consistent with that land use classification. And so just wanted to, when we talk about the zoning conditions, we will be referencing some of the addresses. So just want you to see here, the 2524 is this piece up here to the north, 2604 here to the south. The permitted uses, there's a full listing of 30 included in your staff report. Most of them are neighborhood, business, office, medical, dental clinics. Again, you'll see the full listing in your report, but typical with what we would see with the MORR zoning. The only residential use is accessory apartment. Otherwise, all of them are neighborhood business type uses. So because we have a difference here of existing structures, a couple different types of uses, the zoning conditions are spelled out for those particular scenarios. So I'll go over those each. So one, for uses utilizing the existing structures, the following zoning conditions would apply. Only existing structures may be used for residential uses. Parking shall be provided to the side or rear of the principal building. For future uses, the following shall apply. The use accessory apartment shall be permitted only on floors above non-residential uses in new construction. For non-residential mixed-use new construction design guidelines. A lot of these are typical with what we see for non-residential guidelines as far as creating and activating public places, no more than one double-loaded parking bay between any building and thoroughfares as identified on the transportation map, which would include Kelly Road. Drive-through lanes, pickup windows, and other like functions shall not be permitted along any thoroughfare or collector street. Landscaping and other architectural features shall be used to create screenings for these types of uses. Elevations of corner buildings shall utilize design features such as variations in wall plane, variation in building mass and window placement to generate street interest. And the next 4, 5 through 9 also just again re-emphasize that creating of place. Number 10, vehicular and pedestrian cross access shall be provided to adjacent properties. And number 11, public street access shall be by one of 3 methods below, abutting within 10 feet of the shared property line of 2524 and 26. Property line is right here, so we know.
Between the two?
Yes,
Okay.
so that's right about here,
Thank you.
or is right there.
Is that a driveway across that Callaway Road?
Over here,
Yeah,
yes.
okay, that's, okay.
So abutting within 10 feet of the shared property line of 2524 and 2604 Kelly Road, or further south on 2604 Kelly Road, property as a shared access easement in either case. Or B, to existing West Village development streets. And to show you here is West Village. This is part of the street network, and these are the two properties in this rezoning, just to give you that. C, temporary alternate for 2524 Kelly Road only. If 2524 Kelly Road develops prior to adjacent West Village Street network and 2604 Kelly Road, 2524 Kelly Road may provide temporary entrance as close to 2604 Kelly Road property as allowed by the Town of Apex without off-site easement. Entrance shall be abandoned once option A or B is provided. We will end up coming back to 11A through C later. Non-residential mixed-use exteriors shall incorporate a variation in materials. The primary front facade of the main buildings to be considered may include, and you'll see there we have 10 different materials or material types listed. Exterior materials not allowed as part of the development includes vinyl siding, painted smooth face concrete block, or metal walls. Again, consistent with what we see when materials are excluded. And planning staff recommends denial of 19 CZ 23, 25, 24, and 2604 Kelly Road with the conditions as offered by the applicant. Approval of the rezoning is reasonable because the proposed mixed office residential retail conditional zoning district is generally consistent with high-density office employment commercial services land use classification on the 2045 land use map. However, the proposed rezoning is not reasonable and in the public interest because it would allow for the subject properties to develop with access concerns left unmitigated. Staff does not support proposed condition 11C regarding public street access as a temporary drive is not an enforceable condition. It would be reasonable for future access to the properties to be provided as proposed only in zoning conditions 11A or B as shown below. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Is that the only change they would have to make to have support?
Correct. So staff supports all of the application, all of the conditions, just not 11C. 11A and B, yes, but not 11C.
Any other questions for Sarah at this time? Thank you, Sarah. Is the applicant here? Okay.
I'm gonna.
My name is Brian Griffith. I'm a 2-decade resident of Apex and proud of it. Upon talking to my neighbors, my southern neighbor, Mr. Tony Muccio, asked to be part of the rezoning. We are really the only two remnants that are not part of the commercial zoning that was part of the PUD. The item of question is the access for 2524. Since all of the commercial in that area is still privately held, it is not owned by a corporation. Timing was the question that we asked for option C. We are happy to provide a bond or other method to make sure that that access is provided, and I think it is a great access, but I wanted the opportunity for 2524 to develop prior to the other private properties currently planned for commercial. If you have any questions, feel free.
I don't understand enough about what the complication would be for why you think you need C as an option. So can you explain it to us a little bit?
Certainly. The properties to the south, I did ask for a private easement to allow the driveway on the shared property line. It is currently owned by a trust. My neighbor is of advanced age, and he was not comfortable providing that at this time. On the other parts, that is actually through another private property, the Sears property, which is the majority of that commercial parcel. And that would probably entail, you saw in the previous slide, the roundabout and entrance into the site. So I'm just asking for temporary access and then a bonding or other method to provide the entrances internally or on that shared property line at a future date. Currently, these two properties are investment properties. There is no scheduled property or development for either of the parcels.
And just for some clarity, you were saying there was a trust issue with the neighboring property?
It is in a trust.
It's in a trust?
That is correct.
Okay.
It's a family trust there in their low 80s, I believe.
I see. And I'm just trying to figure out a way that you could make that work.
Did you have a conversation with the planning board about all of this and your proposal for the bond, and so y'all couldn't come up with some kind of
There was a question about enforceability and how
Right.
all of that would go in place. I'm open to options there, but we didn't come to an opportunity that seemed to make sense for Apex legally and myself to have that confidence that that could be put in financially. But I would be happy to offer a bond for that.
Sarah, can you tell us why the bond is not a solution?
Yeah, I'll let Russell speak to that. in
Okay. Hey, Russell.
better detail.
Yeah, we can't bond for a private driveway. I've talked to Development Services, and that's not an option for us. And I guess the other comment is, I mean, basically what we're trying to do is get the driveway located as far south as possible and have it shared between the two land uses. If you'll notice with West Village, their primary access into that planned unit development is just north of this property. So if you look at the property line between these two, it's only about 400 feet south, and it's on a major thoroughfare, which is Kelly Road. So we're trying to provide as much distance as possible. Typically, we look for 500 feet or more when you're talking about major access along a thoroughfare, typically 800 feet on a major thoroughfare. In this case, we think something that splits the property line is reasonable. We provided the option for something that would be, which is part of the alternative we've actually agreed to, which is having it 10 feet north of the property line. We believe that's close enough and still provides enough distance. The problem we had with C was it just provides too much flexibility, too much unknown. It allows it to shift further north, and then it's still not committing to exactly what that distance is. So I understand what the applicant's saying, but really these are two relatively small parcels on a thoroughfare. We want consolidated driveway access. We want that access to be further away from the major entrance into West Village, which is already approved. So that's really staff's reasoning. So A and B we're okay with. We're just not comfortable with C.
So, detailed question. So if it's 10 feet north of the property line, it'd be on your property, his property.
Correct.
So why is this trust issue where they can't agree to an easement even necessary? Why does he even need to negotiate with his southern neighbor about an easement?
I'm not sure. I don't know if he's done enough design work to determine that he would still need an easement of some kind, but
Could I get the full width within that 10 foot?
our understanding is the driveway would be, roughly 10 feet. So if you look at the edge of where your driveway is, there'd be 10 feet between the edge of the driveway and the property line. So that's the intent. The intent was to provide something that doesn't necessarily need an off-site easement. If he does have to get some kind of easement, both these properties are coming in to be rezoned. From staff's perspective, ideally, we would want them developed at the same time because they're relatively small parcels. If planning board and council are comfortable allowing these to be rezoned and have some kind of separation between them, all we're asking is that driveway be as close to the property line as feasible and have some certainty it's a permanent access.
That totally makes sense. All that makes sense. So one last little detail question. So if he's able to build a driveway totally on his property, he doesn't need an easement from his southern neighbor, but when the southern neighbor develops, he'll need an easement from him.
Part of the condition is that he has to dedicate a cross-access easement with that driveway that's within 10 feet of the property
So he's
line.
got to basically allow enough to allow them to do a driveway on their side of the property line?
Right, the easement would cover that, so the easement would allow them to cross onto his property to connect to that shared drive, which is another reason to leave it roughly 10 feet, not too far away, because that's less infrastructure they have to build to connect to it. Ideally, again, it would split right down the middle of the property lines, and that's where we first started, but we're trying to provide some flexibility without causing a problem for future site development.
Got it.
If I could get a two-way drive, I'm acceptable to that. That 10 foot, I think, is only single car.
there might be a misunderstanding. I mean, the driveway itself doesn't need to be 10 feet wide. It's the distance from the property line to the edge of the driveway.
Okay.
So your driveway could be, I mean, typically it'd be like 20 feet or 24 feet wide for a commercial driveway, but there would be 10 feet of separation between the edge of that pavement and the property line, which hopefully would provide you enough room to be able to do the work for the driveway without having to get an off-site easement.
I apologize, misunderstanding is on my part.
Okay.
I'm willing to strike C.
Okay.
Just have A and B.
All right.
Good.
Okay.
That's great.
Well, that was easy.
I can see both sides, why he would want to.
All right, we still, so thank you, Brian. So at this time, we'll open up for public comment. Anybody wishing to make a comment on this rezoning case? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for any comments based on the change in 11C. I think it all looks a lot better.
So if I hear right, we need to modify or strike option C.
Yes.
If that's the case, I would make a motion to approve if we're striking option C.
I second.
11C.
So we're approving
11C.
the rezoning with the conditions offered except excluding 11C. That's okay with Brian? Okay. We have a motion and
Second.
a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody.
That went good.
All right, Sarah gets a break. Shelley will present item number 3, rezoning case 20 CZ02, the New Hill Holloman Road project. Sarah is still the cleaning lady.
She didn't get a break after all.
She's going home now?
Did she get hazard pay?
Sadly, none of us. Okay, the next one up is 3036 New Hill Holloman Road. It's located in the southwestern corner, whoops, just trying to use the mouse and clicked. It's located in the southwestern corner of the town's jurisdiction, just west of the Wake County Regional Water Reclamation Facility. I always have to pause and think about how to say that. It is located on New Hill Holloman, just south and east of Holloman Hills subdivision, across the street from the Apex Fire Station number 2, and just up and across the street from the New Hill Community Center. The parcel in question is about 0.98 acres, so just shy of an acre. Currently, it's zoned Wake County GB, and they're requesting rezoning to medium-density residential conditional zoning. The adjacent parcels are medium-density conditional zoning to the north and west, more Wake County GB just to the south, PUD CZ across the street here for the community center, and then Wake County HD across the street. And as I said, they're requesting MDCZ here. The 2045 land use map designates this particular parcel as medium-density residential, with it being within the overall neighborhood business community area. Activity center, that's the word I'm looking for. Okay. Just to give you some context, Holloman Hills was approved in March 22nd, 2018 by Planning Board and Town Council. This property is immediately adjacent to it. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on December 30th. That meeting report is attached. The applicant is also proposing certain conditions and uses. Those are consistent with the adjacent medium-density conditional zoning uses and conditions. They are single-family, park active, park passive, greenway, utility minor, accessory apartment, family care home, and recreation facility private. On the second page of your staff report, the first 7 conditions are all architectural in nature and are all consistent with what we typically see in architectural conditions. Condition 8 states that the buffer along New Hill Holloman Road will be a type A. The UDO requires that to be a 30-foot type E, so the applicant is proposing additional opacity. That is consistent with what was approved for for Holloman Hills subdivision. Keep getting that name wrong.
That buffer, just to the north is...
Yep, this green section right here,
It'll
that
be
is
the
a
same
type
width
A
and...
buffer.
Same type A.
Be the same width and same opacity all the way down. The applicant is proposing that all of the homes will be pre-wired for solar panels. A maximum of 4 single-family houses will be built on this property. Maximum density for medium-density residential is 7 units per acre. Because this one's just shy of an acre, 6 would be their typical maximum capacity. So the applicant is reducing that. And then staff worked with the applicant to add condition number 11, which just states that access to the property shall be served from the public street, Briar Hill Street here, abutting the north property line, and or through the adjacent property to the south with access to Church Road, and will not serve directly onto New Hill Holloman Road. It's just because of the distance between these two. Church Road and Briar Hill Road here are fairly close. This is already a right in, right out here. So we wanted to prevent that, to prevent additional conflicts. The applicant is perfectly fine with that. Planning staff recommends approval of the rezoning with the conditions as offered by the applicant. We consider the rezoning reasonable, as the proposed zoning district is consistent with the 2045 land use map, and it's reasonable and in the public interest because it will permit increased housing options in the New Hill area and permit higher densities necessary to support future non-residential uses in the adjacent activity center. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you. The applicant is also here if you'd like.
Anybody have a question for Shelley?
Yes, sir.
Shelley, you said it's going to have 6 units maximum, not 4?
No, it's going to have 4. I was explaining that the UDO would actually allow it to have a maximum of 6, and the applicant reduced that density with the condition, stating that it would just be 4.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Shelley.
You're welcome.
The applicant like to come forward and make any statement?
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Board, for allowing me this opportunity. And I would just like to say Shelley has done an excellent job, and I ask your support on this zoning. It will be a maximum, I'm sorry, we're only looking at 4 lots, possibly less than that. That depends on my civil engineer and our layout. So I just ask your support, and thank you for hearing me this evening.
So the lots will be similar size to the existing?
Yes, they're the same size as the current development that is already under construction. They would only be 50-foot width lots, single-family lots.
Does Holloman Hill have a homeowners association that you would be part of that, or is it don't to be determined later?
At this time, we haven't had that conversation.
Okay. All right. This is only rezoning. So. Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Wilson?
I do. Are they running the access north into that subdivision road? Is that how you're going to access the property?
The driveways to the property?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So it's going north.
Any other questions for Mr. Wilson? Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll open up for public comment. Anybody wishing to make a comment on this rezoning hearing? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for any additional comments or questions or possible motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for rezoning with the conditions that were stated.
Motion and a second by Keith. Motion and second. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Moving to item number 4, Lauren will present rezoning case 20 CZ03 1200 James Street.
She's in her office watching this on live stream, so just give her a minute. Oh, she showed up right behind
Snuck
me.
in.
She's all sneaky and stuff.
As soon as the cleaning lady.
Or she's on live stream and it's now the new hologram. It looks just like you.
At this point,
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
This is rezoning case 20CZ03, located at 1200 James Street. The property is located in this general area in Apex. The property to be rezoned is 4.09 acres and is located on the east side of Schifflin Road, north of Energy Drive and adjacent to James Street. And it's adjacent to the Peak City Business Park or the overall Schifflin Industrial Non-Residential subdivision. The property currently contains an existing residential structure and pond. The property is currently zoned medium-density residential. To the north, medium-density residential. To the east and south is light industrial. And to the west, you have medium-density as well as mobile home park. The applicant is proposing to rezone this property to Tech Flex Conditional Zoning. The 2045 land use map identifies this site as industrial employment and office employment. The proposed rezoning is consistent with the land use map designation. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on January 22nd, 2020, and a copy of the neighborhood report is in your packet. Before reviewing the proposed uses and conditions, I would like to point out there is one additional condition that has been added and a copy is at your seat. It's underlined and bolded. I think it's the first one. The applicant, a full list of the proposed uses are included on page 2 of the staff report. Uses such as veterinarian clinic or hospital, medical or dental office or clinic, office business or professional, personal services, health fitness center or spa, restaurant general, and microbrewery. The applicant has provided 3 architectural conditions specific for non-residential buildings and one related to keeping the proposed elevations compatible with the existing Peak City Business Park development. A full listing starts on page 2 of the staff report. There are a few other proposed conditions I would like to point out. Access to this parcel shall be served from Energy Drive. No direct access shall be permitted to Schifflin Road or James Street. The second one, the broadcasting station, radio and television recording studio shall not use towers that exceed 30 feet in height. To summarize the next zoning conditions, uses associated with building supplies wholesales, retail sales bulky goods, and vehicle sales and rental light shall be limited to indoor storage. The parcel associated to the subject parcel we're talking about shall be incorporated in the non-residential master subdivision plan for Schifflin Industrial Park. Public art will be provided on site by the developer consistent with UDO section 8.4.5. The new condition that you'll find bold and underlined is the use, school, public, or private, shall not exceed 9,000 square feet. Approval of the rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest because it will provide an opportunity for non-residential uses to serve the surrounding area while being incorporated into the Peak City Business Park, or known as the Schifflin Industrial Non-Residential Master Subdivision Plan. The proposed rezoning will maintain the character and appearance of the area and provide uses similar to those approved for the adjacent non-residential subdivision plan. Planning staff can recommend approval with conditions as offered by the applicant. I'll be happy to answer questions as well as the applicant in the audience.
Is there any way to enforce the request from the resident in her email for the address to not be 1200 James Street? Because it seems like if that were done in an enforceable way, about 2/3 of these concerns she has would go away.
That's actually something that the applicant can bring to you. We did work on a condition,
Okay.
so he'll be able to provide that as part of his. Mhm.
Any other questions for Lauren? Thank you, Lauren. Would the applicant like to make a statement?
Good afternoon. My name is Patrick. True. My name is Patrick Kiernan with Jones and Canalson Engineering, 221 North Salem Street, Suite 001, right downtown. On behalf of our clients, we would like to thank Planning Board for your time and consideration on this rezoning, and Lauren and the rest of the town staff as well for all their help along the way. Mr. Seal, to answer your question, we did work with town staff after we received these public comments, and totally agree with you. We looked at them and, we realized that almost all of her concerns would be alleviated with a condition being added about the mailing address. I think the concern stemmed from the fact that currently it is 1200 James Street. So, our intent was to address it off of Energy Drive along with the rest of the buildings in Peak City Business Park. But in an effort to really set that in stone, we would like to bring forth the condition, building or buildings shall not be addressed to James Street or Shefflin Road. So when this gets presented at Town Council, I believe that would be a condition that would be in the report, but we would like to formally add that now.
Great.
In addition to that, I don't want to be too redundant. Lauren did a great job. I would just like to reiterate the fact that upon rezoning, this would be incorporated into the Shefflin Industrial Park non-residential MSP. This master plan was originally planned to have individual industrial lots, but the owners have executed several property recombinations in order to achieve a more cohesive business park, which now goes by the name Peak City Business Park. And if you are inclined to see kind of the style and theme of how that park is playing out, several of the buildings have been developed and constructed. So per the condition, that architectural standards would be similar. The style and theme of this building would sort of match those. There is currently a 40-foot Type A buffer between Peak City Business Park and the subject property, and upon rezoning and incorporation into the industrial subdivision, that buffer would be removed and essentially follow the new property line, which is along James Street, the northern property boundary. So that line would essentially just turn with the new project boundary.
The property that's right next to Energy, just south of, is that, who owns that now?
So that is currently a part of the Peak City Business Park as open space. So depending on the layout configurations, there will be additional open space provided in this site plan to make up for that open space that would be lost. But given the access that that we would be able to put there, it lines up directly with an existing access point for one of the Peak City Business Park buildings. So it is a natural place for an access point. So again, any open space that would be removed currently would be reincorporated into the new site plan. And other than that, I'm here for any questions. That's about all I have.
The pond, I think I saw in the neighborhood, you plan on either filling that in or just making it more of just a stream?
Yeah, so there were several iterations on what might happen with the pond. We had a couple of conversations with environmental consultants, and then of course the comments from the neighbor himself. A lot of things kind of led to the fact that due to the drainage issues that are happening north of James Street, due to damming by the beavers and flooding upstream, we believe it's in the best interest to drain the pond, let it reform as a channel, and then that would be essentially the result of that. Obviously, it would be analyzed for wetlands and any other features that may come out of that. So you never know exactly what that side of the property would look like, but that is the plan to drain the pond.
Any other questions for Patrick?
And just to be clear, are those the property south and for the are they going to be recombined into one property, or are you going to access
probably
the neighbor?
It's hard to say right now. Like I said, there were several recombinations that have been done along the way to make individual industrial lots part of a greater lot, but we do still have some dividing property lines in case the owners one day want to kind of redistribute or sell off this or that. So it's hard to say exactly where the property lines would be, but there's a good chance that everything north of Energy Drive would end up on one parcel.
Yes, my main concern was just easement, and in case of that very situation in the future you were mentioning, that there would be no issues with access.
Right.
Yes.
The way they've handled that with the other recommendations is basically language in the agreements of cross-access agreements. So if anything would be sold off, everything would be kind of underlined that there would be cross-access agreements in place.
Okay.
For that situation.
Good.
Anything else?
Any other comments, questions for Patrick?
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. So I think, so there was a public comment that came in, so is Lauren going to read that?
You need to open the public hearing.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, open it for public hearing for the rezoning case, 20 ZC 03, 1200 James Street.
All right, this was part of the, an email that was sent to the public hearing email address. I'm going to just read the whole thing. I am Angie Gartner, a property owner and resident living with my child at 1209 James Street, Apex. I'm writing to express my concerns regarding the proposed rezoning 20CZ03 and development of property at 1200 James Street, Apex. The concern is based on these potential probable negative effects. And I'll list them out, number 1, 2, 3. Number 1, the loss of neighborhood and community character. Number 2, a decrease in the market value of my home. 3, increased traffic congestion, adding to an already dangerous situation on Shiflin Road at James Street. Number 4, increased traffic-related risk to human life as at least 2 school bus stops are located at Shiflin Road and James Street. Number 5, if the property retains its 1200 James Street address, there will be inevitable increased traffic on James Street, whether access to 1200 James is available or not. The 1200 block of James Street is a single-lane, soft surface, not paved street. Errant traffic is funneled by the street to the only turnaround location in front of my house. Any additional traffic will result in rapid street deterioration, congestion, pollution, and potential obstruction to emergency and utility services. Number 6, given the statement above, there's a real concern that our U.S. Postal Service can be compromised. Mailbox bank for all residents is currently mounted at the present entrance to the petitioner's property. Additional vehicular and pedestrian traffic exposures are mailed to tampering and loss. Number 7, the destruction of green space and mature trees, as well as driving animals out of the area onto Shiflin Road, causing accidents. Number 8, once the property is rezoned, the developer can change the original concept within the approved TechFlex conditional zoning. In light of these concerns, I request that a traffic study be conducted to assess impact on current residents, potential customers, and wildlife. I also request that the property address be changed to indicate the access point from Energy Drive. It is unknown how the petitioners plan to enforce no direct access shall be permitted to Shiflin Road or James Street, in quotations. A detailed plan needs to be developed and studied. Respectfully, Angie Gartner. Phone number.
Anybody else wishing to make a public comment on this rezoning case? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for any comment or any additional questions you may have, or possible motion.
Given, I don't know how to make the motion, so help me. So given the addition of the condition to have it not be addressed James Street or Shiflin, I move that we recommend approval.
Okay, I think the verbiage should be, building shall not be addressed on James Street or Shiflin Drive. Okay, with that condition, and we have a motion, do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. That completes the public hearing section. We have one new business agenda that Amanda will present on possible motion regarding various amendments to the UDO. You didn't know that cleaning was one of your requirements for the planning staff.
Thank you. Okay, so we have two amendments for you today. I'll pause after the first one so we can discuss that. The first amendment is to Section 515, the Table of Intensity and Design Standards for the Small Town Character Overlay District. And the purpose is to increase the permitted building height to 3 stories and 50 feet subject to specific standards, including setbacks. So as you can see, let me go to this a little bit bigger. The maximum height currently in the Central Business District is 2 stories and 36 feet. The proposal is to increase that to 3 stories and 50 feet if all of these standards are met. So the existing structure cannot be contributing to the historic district. So a contributing structure, they cannot add a floor of height onto that. The existing or proposed building shall be located on Salem Street. The existing or proposed building is located on the corner of 2 public streets or a public street and a public alley. So the intent is that it's not going to be mid-block. It's going to be on a corner. The 3rd story shall be set back at least 18 feet from the property line along the front facade. And open-air rooftop dining shall be exempt from the height calculation. And one of the purposes of this amendment is the downtown plan actually identified a couple of areas that could be supportive of a taller building to increase the square footage of non-residential uses. Sorry, this keeps slipping. Non-residential uses downtown, and so we're implementing or proposing this UDO amendment to help implement that part of the downtown plan.
Like a hotel or a little boutique hotel or something.
Or offices, or what? I mean, it could be anything. And so we did send this to Capital Area Preservation, who we contract with for historic preservation services, and they were opposed to the UDO amendment, believing that the additional height violates Standard 9 of the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. And I'll read what Standard 9 is for you. New additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. Staff does not believe that this is relevant based upon reading the context of the interiors, the guidance, the standards, because when it refers to new constructions, it's talking about new construction on the same site as an historic building, which this site does not contain. The sites that are likely to meet this criteria do not contain contributing structures. And so we believe that this would not apply to the properties that could take advantage of this UDO amendment. Do you have any questions or concerns about?
Any questions on this amendment?
Are there any distances from the historic section to these sites that we might identify?
So this is intended to apply within the Central Business District, which is not very large. It extends essentially from Chatham Street on the south up to just north of Center Street along North Salem Street. So it's only that couple of blocks. That was really the heart of the downtown plan. Okay.
I think this is important to realize some aspects of the downtown plan that we went through. And I think I was trying to bring up the map. I think this only applies to like 2 buildings, doesn't it?
It's about 2 parcels that this could apply to.
How about fire service? I mean, how tall are our ladder trucks?
We can definitely handle this. We have buildings proposed and approved for Sweetwater, for example, that will be about 70 feet tall at a typical 15-foot floor height with some, this is 50 feet maximum, so we should have no trouble.
And this is for private or, well, I guess this doesn't matter. This could be private or could be public.
Either.
Either way.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Okay. If there are no other questions on this one, I'll move on to the next one, which is quite simple. The next amendment is to change references to the title Stormwater and Utility Engineering Manager to Environmental Engineering Manager when it's located within Article 6.1, and to Water Resources Director when it's located in Section 7.2.1. The position of Stormwater and Utility Engineering Manager has been recently divided into two different positions, and but the responsibility for what's allowed in Article 7, the decision was made to shift that up to the Water Resources Director. And planning staff is recommending approval of these amendments.
Thank you, Amanda. Any other questions for Amanda or any comments on these two amendments? Or a possible motion?
I'll make a motion to approve them as presented.
Okay, I have a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a second. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And with that, we just need a motion for adjournment.
I'll move.
Thank you. All in favor?
Little quick, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Glad to be back.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
You ready, Gaddy? Mike, this went to sleep.
Y'all have been
again, so I'm not
busy,
sure
I
what's
can
going
see.
on, but just FYI.
Through this COVID. Y'all have been busy.
Diana, were you gonna, you want me to take care?
I just had to type the last one, getting added, I'm sending it right now.
Can I do it at home, or you want me to do it right now?
You can do it at home.
Okay. Well, I just don't know how to log in, because it, yes.
I gave you a time for tomorrow.
Okay. Did you send it to both addresses?
I just
Yeah.
shut it.
I don't have it, I got a new.
Is it okay if we just shut it?
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
finish what you got. I'm not in a hurry, but I just didn't know how to really approve it right here.
See you all soon.
See you, Mark.
How we doing, Tim? Well, good, man. Good to see you. Good, man.
Meeting minutes is still okay to sign in person, or do you want that?
Just something start happening again.
Meeting minutes, you want me to sign those, or you want me to do those?
But I've seen a lot of it.
Every flaw you need to fix.
Yes, yes.
MMARKS.
Everything you need to do.
Did you get any honey-do lists to do while you were
Got it.
from home? Were you at home working, I assume?
I started tearing up the
None of
kids'
your
bathroom, so,
Oh, that's a big project, Tim.
yeah, well, we're just redoing floors and painting the vanity and stuff like that, nothing.
It's rarely a
Nothing
bathroom
big.
floor and it not need replacing.
1980s has got to go.
Yes, well, okay, I'm early 90s, so I'm not far ahead of you
Yeah.
either.
I remember that. Life is good.
Life is good, that's good. Glad to be back. Well, take care.
Okay, you too.
Thank you. You show me the meeting.
Oh, yeah, I still have it.
This is a little easier than the Teams meeting.
Yeah, the meeting.
Yeah,